His hands were cuffed. His tired, lined face looked down. "State your name," the court clerk asked. He replied softly, voice shaking. "Elias Carter, Staff Sergeant, United States Marines." No one in the courtroom could guess what was coming. The female judge flipped through his case file. Then suddenly, she stopped. Her face turned pale. That name, it belonged to the man who once saved her brother's life in war, in Fallujah, before disappearing completely. Comment: respect if you believe honor doesn't fade with poverty or age. Elias Carter, 69, sat on a courtroom bench, shoulders slumped in an old military coat, too big for him. The bright courtroom lights made every deep line on his face stand out. He had lived through many hard years. Once, he wore a Marine uniform filled with medals. Now, he waited for judgment, wearing second-hand clothes from a shelter. Case 47B, the bailiff called. City of Newbridge versus Elias Carter. Charges: disturbing the peace, trespassing, resisting arrest. He stood slowly, knees and back aching, injuries from Vietnam and Iraq still with him. The young, well-dressed prosecutor began. "Mr. Carter has been warned many times. He keeps staying behind Jefferson Street Cafe. The owner filed 3 complaints this month." But what he didn't say was this: Elias never begged, never asked for help. He just sat quietly near the cafe vent, trying to stay warm at night. The police officer took the stand. He was found at 11:45 p.m. behind the cafe. Refused to leave when told. But Elias hadn't refused. He had simply asked, "Can I have 5 more minutes to finish my sandwich?" A kind cook had given it to him. No one listened to him then. No one listened now. "Your Honor," the prosecutor continued, "this is his 3rd violation this year. We suggest 30 days of community service and a no trespass order for downtown." But that would mean Elias couldn't go to the shelter anymore. He'd be banned from church meals. He'd be left outside during the coldest days of the year. Judge Olivia Parker finally looked at him. "Mr. Carter, do you have a lawyer today?" He shook his head. His public defender was busy in another courtroom. "Would you like to speak for yourself?" she asked. Elias cleared his throat. His voice was rough and quiet. "No excuses, ma'am. I just needed to stay warm." "Why behind the cafe?" she asked again. He hesitated. "Jimmy, the cook, leaves food sometimes. I've known him since he was a boy. His father served with me in Desert Storm." "And your service?" the judge asked again, breaking court rules. "United States Marine Corps," Elias answered, straightening up just a bit. 1975 to 1995. Staff Sergeant, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, Iraq. The courtroom fell silent. His words, full of pride, filled the room like a quiet thunder. Judge Parker made a quick note in his file, then kept reading. Something in his military records made her stop. Before she could speak, the courtroom doors opened. A man in a sharp navy blue suit walked in confidently. He walked to the defense table and said, "Your Honor, I'm Alexander Ross. I've just been hired to represent Mr. Carter. I'm sorry for the sudden notice." Elias stared at him, confused. He had never hired a lawyer. He couldn't afford one, especially not one with shiny cufflinks and fancy shoes. "This is unusual," Judge Parker said, watching carefully. "We weren't told of any new lawyer." "It just happened, Your Honor," Ross replied calmly. "I respectfully ask for a short break to speak with my client." The judge looked at both men. Her face showed nothing. "This court is in recess for 15 minutes, she said, then left the courtroom quickly. Elias leaned over to Ross and whispered, "I don't have money for this." Ross replied quietly, "You won't need it. My law firm, Williams, Ross Parker, is taking this case for free." Elias frowned. "Parker?" he asked. "Yes," Ross said, like the judge. Inside her chambers, Judge Olivia Parker took off her glasses, hands shaking. In 20 years as a judge, she had seen many things, but nothing like this. "It can't be him," she whispered. She opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo, herself as a young woman beside her brother, Lieutenant Jack Parker. He was wearing his Marine uniform, smiling proudly. Next to it was Jack's final letter from Iraq, edges worn soft from years of quiet grief. In the letter, he had written about a brutal battle outside Fallujah. His unit had been trapped. But then came Staff Sergeant Quinn, rushing into gunfire, carrying a wounded Marine to safety, covering the others so they could escape. If not for him, Jack had written, none of us would have survived. 2 weeks after writing that letter, Jack was killed by a roadside bomb. Olivia remembered the funeral, the folded flag, her parents' broken hearts, and the Marine who came up to her afterward. "Your brother saved my life," he said. "I was the one he carried." He never said more. He didn't need to. She never forgot his name, Mason Quinn. Years ago, she tried to find him to hear more about Jack's last moments. The military told her he was sent back into combat quickly. Later, he was discharged with severe PTSD and a brain injury. Now, 20 years later, he was in her courtroom. A stranger to everyone, but not to her. A knock on her door. Ross stepped in, looking concerned. "Olivia, what is going on?" he asked. He was her late husband's old law partner, one of the few people who called her by name. "It's him, Alex," she said, pointing to the photo. "The Marine who saved Jack. The one who carried him out of that ambush." Ross's face changed as the truth hit him. "You mean the homeless veteran in your courtroom?" He paused, speaking softly. "That's Elias Carter? The same man you've been searching for all these years?" Judge Olivia nodded slowly. "Yes. His service record proves it. Fallujah, 2004. Same unit as Jack. He even got the Silver Star for the same battle Jack wrote about in his letters." Ross asked, "Does he know who you are?" "I don't think so," Olivia replied. "I married Thomas after law school and took his last name. Carter wouldn't recognize me now. It's been 20 years. She sighed deeply. "How does a hero like him end up like this, Alex? How does someone who once saved lives end up alone, on trial, just for trying to stay warm?" Ross shook his head. "In just a few minutes of talking to him, I could tell he's been through a lot. After his last deployment, he had serious PTSD. His wife left him while he was overseas. His benefits got stuck in paperwork. He worked in construction for a while, but his injuries made it impossible. After that came job loss, then eviction, and finally the streets." Olivia closed her eyes. Her brother Jack's words echoed in her mind. "Carter was the best of us. The kind of Marine who'd risk everything for his brothers. If I turn out even half as good, I'll be lucky." Ross spoke carefully. "You could step away from the case. Recuse yourself. No one would blame you." "No," she said firmly. "I'm not letting this man disappear again." "You know the ethical risks?" he asked. "I do," she nodded. "But I also know my duty, especially to those who gave everything for this country." When Judge Parker returned to the courtroom, she looked calm and professional. Her voice was strong, her face unreadable, but those who knew her might have noticed her hands were shaking slightly as she touched her papers. "Mr. Ross," she said formally, "has your client made a decision?" Ross stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We're asking the court to dismiss all charges. Mr. Carter wasn't trespassing. He was trying to survive the cold. And we can prove that employees at the restaurant allowed him to be there, even if not officially." The prosecutor opened his mouth to argue, but Judge Parker raised her hand. He stayed silent. "I have a few questions for the defendant," she said. Then, turning to Elias, "Mr. Carter, your file says you were in Fallujah in 2004. Is that correct?" Elias sat up straighter. "Yes, ma'am. 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines." "On April 17th, were you part of a mission near the west side of the city?" Elias looked confused but nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We were escorting a supply convoy and got ambushed." "During that ambush," she asked, "did you rescue a wounded officer, Lieutenant Jack Parker, under enemy fire?" The room fell silent. Elias's eyes narrowed. The name hit him like a wave. "Parker," he whispered. "Yes, young lieutenant. Brave kid. He got hit trying to help a wounded medic. I pulled him to cover. He kept yelling at me to leave him and help others." In the back of the room, a silver-haired man in a Marine League jacket leaned forward. His eyes sharpened. "And what happened to Lieutenant Parker?" Judge Olivia asked, her face calm, though inside she was trembling. "We got him out," Elias said softly. "They flew him to Germany, I heard. But a few weeks later, his convoy hit an IED." Elias's voice cracked. "I've always wondered, maybe saving him just delayed the inevitable. Maybe I made it worse." Before anyone could speak, the older Marine stood up. "That's him," he said loudly, pointing at Elias. "That's Staff Sergeant Carter. I was there that day. He saved 6 of us." The room stirred. Judge Parker tapped her gavel once. "Order," she said, though her voice didn't carry its usual power. The courtroom grew quiet again. Elias stared at the floor, clearly uncomfortable in the spotlight. But the silver-haired Marine didn't sit down. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "I don't mean to interrupt, but I saw it with my own eyes. Carter took fire while pulling that lieutenant out." The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, while Mr. Carter's military service is admirable, it's not relevant to these charges." Judge Parker interrupted sharply. "This court disagrees. It is very relevant." She gently set her gavel down. "This court will take a 10-minute recess." Then she turned to the bailiff. "Please make sure Mr. Carter remains here." As she stepped away from the bench, she paused. Something rare. She looked directly into Elias's eyes for the first time, truly seeing him. "Mr. Carter," she said gently, "when I return, we have more to talk about than just this case." Inside her chambers, the judge finally let her emotions show. Her fingers trembled as she touched her lips, holding back 20 years of buried pain. Then, after a deep breath, she picked up the phone. "Colonel Matthews? This is Olivia Parker. Yes, I know it's been a long time, but I need a favor, and I need it now." Exactly 10 minutes later, she walked back into the courtroom, but she wasn't alone. 3 Marines followed behind her, a full colonel, a master sergeant, and a young corporal holding a polished wooden box. Gasps filled the room. People whispered as the uniforms came into view. Elias stood instinctively, his knees stiff, but his back straight. Old habits, born from honor, kicked in. Judge Parker returned to her bench. But this time, she didn't reach for her glasses. She looked around the courtroom, not as a judge, but as a human being. "Before we continue," she said clearly, "I need to share something personal about this case." Then she turned and looked straight at Elias. Judge Olivia Parker, firm but emotional. "The Lieutenant Jack Parker mentioned earlier, he was my brother." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Elias Carter lifted his eyes, confusion giving way to recognition. His weathered face tightened. The room fell silent. Heavy, reverent, charged with sudden meaning. Judge Parker, voice steady, eyes shining. 20 years ago, Jack wrote home about a staff sergeant who ran through enemy fire to save his life in Fallujah. He said that man covered the rest of the unit while wounded, refusing to leave anyone behind. Her voice broke slightly. "That man was you, Sergeant Elias Carter." From the gallery, the silver-haired Marine stood again. Marine veteran clearly moved. "She's right. I was there." Carter took 2 bullets, dragging that lieutenant to safety. Judge Parker gave a quiet nod, gathering herself. "Judge Parker, 2 weeks later, my brother was killed in action. At his funeral, Marines came to my family. They spoke of Jack's courage, but also of the man who gave us 2 more weeks with him. 2 weeks we otherwise never would have had." She turned to Elias, her gaze direct and unwavering. "Judge Parker," softly, "I searched for you for years. After Jack's death, I tried to find you. The Corps told me you'd redeployed. Later, I learned you were discharged, but no one could say where you went. I never stopped looking. And now, somehow, fate brings you to my courtroom." She motioned to the uniformed officer beside her. "Judge Parker, this is Colonel James Matthews. He commanded Jack's unit. He has something to say." Colonel Matthews stepped forward. "Colonel Matthews, Staff Sergeant Carter, the Marine Corps has been trying to find you. Your file came under review during the Veterans Reconsideration Initiative. Based on newly declassified intel, your commendations and benefits were reassessed." The young corporal beside him opened the polished wooden case. Inside, a medal resting on deep blue velvet. "Colonel Matthews, clearly honored, by order of the Secretary of the Navy, in recognition of your extraordinary bravery on April 17, 2004, the Navy Cross is hereby awarded to Staff Sergeant Elias J. Carter, United States Marine Corps." Another wave of gasps swept the room. The Navy Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. "Colonel Matthews, until recently your mission was classified. But your actions didn't just save Lieutenant Parker and 5 Marines, they disrupted an ambush that could have wiped out the entire convoy. Your Silver Star has been upgraded." Elias swallowed hard. His jaw clenched. For the first time, his composure cracked. "Elias, quietly, there must be some mistake. I didn't do anything special. I just did my job." "Colonel Matthews, no mistake, Sergeant. This recognition is long overdue." From the back, a commanding voice rang out. Marine veteran crisp, attention on deck. The gallery rose, veterans, civilians, even the prosecutor, all standing in solemn respect. Point one by one, they saluted Elias Carter. Judge Parker wiped at her tears. Judge Parker, voice breaking but proud, in light of these extraordinary developments, all charges against Staff Sergeant Elias Carter are hereby dismissed permanently. Her gavel fell like thunder. Judge Parker, this courtroom is adjourned. As the crowd settled, the Master Sergeant approached Elias with a tablet. Master Sergeant, sir, we've updated your VA file. Your disability rating has been reassessed, 100 service-connected. Retroactive to your original discharge. Elias blinked. Elias, what? What does that mean? Master Sergeant, back pay. Full medical. Housing. Education. Everything you're owed, starting now. Ross stepped forward. Ross, our firm will handle every step. No more delays. No more red tape. From the gallery, Jimmy, the cafe cook, stepped forward. Jimmy, my dad told me stories about a Marine who saved his platoon. He said, if you ever meet a man named Elias Carter, you owe him everything. Reaches out. I didn't know it was you. Not until today. Even the prosecutor approached, clearly shaken. Prosecutor Sergeant. I had no idea. I'm so sorry for how this case was handled. Please accept my deepest apology. As the courtroom emptied, Judge Parker descended from the bench. No longer a judge, just a sister and a grateful citizen. Judge Parker, standing before him. My brother once told us what you said to him that day. No Marine gets left behind. Not while I'm still breathing. Today, Sergeant Carter, we finally return that promise to you. 2 weeks later, Elias stood before a mirror. His apartment was modest, part of a new veterans housing program, but it was warm, safe. His dot on the wall, the Navy Cross. His Purple Heart, recovered medals, once lost to storage, now reclaimed by Ross's team. A knock. He opened the door. Judge Olivia Parker stood there, not in robes. Just Olivia, holding a small box. Olivia, gently. May I come in, Sergeant Carter? Elias, smiling softly. Just Elias. Olivia, smiling back. Then I'm just Olivia. They sat across from each other. Quiet filled the space. Olivia, I brought something. She opened the box, revealing a bundle of old, yellowed letters tied with care. They're from Jack. He wrote home every week. This one mentions you. She handed it over. Elias unfolded it with trembling hands. Elias, reading aloud, Mom, Dad, don't worry about the news. I'm safe, thanks to one of our NCOs. Staff Sergeant Carter. He moved through enemy fire like it didn't exist. He refused to leave me, even when I ordered him to. Said no Marine gets left behind. His voice cracked. Olivia, he wrote about you often. Said you were the Marine he looked up to. Elias, he was a good officer. Young, but he cared about his men. That's rare. Olivia looked around his apartment. Olivia, after Jack died, I went to law school. I built the Veterans Court program because of those letters, because of the way Jack saw you, and how the system failed men like you. Elias, I'm no hero. I just did what had to be done. Olivia, smiling faintly. That's exactly what heroes always say. She hesitated. Olivia, there's one more thing you should know. The day Jack died, he was leading a mission to track insurgents targeting civilians. He volunteered. His final letter said he was trying to live up to the example you set. The words hit Elias harder than shrapnel. Olivia, gently, he didn't die because of you. He lived the way he did because of you. They sat in silence. Outside, snow fell soft and steady. Elias, quietly, for years, sleeping on sidewalks, I thought no one remembered. Like none of it mattered. Olivia, softly, but it did. To Jack, to the men you saved, and to me. She rose, placing a hand on his shoulder. Olivia, Jack once said, the measure of a Marine isn't what he does in front of a crowd. It's what he does when no one's watching. You lived that, even when the world forgot. Elias stood tall, taller than he had in years. A quiet strength radiated from within. Elias, softly, with peace in his voice, someone remembered my name. After all this time, someone remembered. In that moment, something long broken finally began to heal. Not just in Elias Carter, but in every forgotten soldier who ever waited for someone to say, You mattered.